I'm getting, well, I don't know if I'm getting elected, but I'm currently running for vice president.
Good job. Good.
Yeah, so, I'm right behind Lawrence Weekly, he nominated for to do it. And so, and I'd be president-elect, or I'd be president in 19. And that's when it
The Truckee Meadows Fire Protection Board of Fire Commissioners. It is Tuesday, November 15th, 2016. And before we salute the flag, I want to let you know that we are live streaming on YouTube right now. So hopefully staff is messaging that out to the people on our regular C-mail, etc., so they know where to go. First item of business is the salute to the flag. And if the county clerk, Ms. Nancy Parrott, would you please be kind enough to lead us?
Please join me. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Could you call us to order and do a roll call, please?
Certainly. Kitty Jung, Chair.
Present.
Bob Lucy, Vice Chair.
Here.
Marcia Bertbigler.
Here.
Von Hartung.
Here.
Jeannie Herman is absent. Fire Chief Charles Moore.
Here.
Deputy District Attorney David Watts-Vial.
Here.
I'm Nancy Parrott, County Clerk. You have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Mr. Fire Chief, will you please read the public comment, call for public comment?
Yes, Madam Chair. Item number 3 is public comment. Comment heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the Board of Fire Commissioners' agenda. The district will also hear public comment during individual action items with comment limited to 3 minutes per person. Comments are to be made to the Board of Fire Commissioners as a whole. Madam Clerk, is there any public comment?
I have no one signed in under general public comment.
Is there anyone here that wishes to speak under general public comment but didn't? Okay, we will close public comment, bring it back to the board. Mr. Chief.
Item number 4, consent items. Madam Chair, I need to pull item number B, please.
Okay, that will be reflected and pulled to return at a later date. With that being said, does anybody have any questions about consent or would like to make a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion by Bert Bigler, a second by Lucy. Is there any public comment?
No, ma'am.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Item number 5, IAFF Local 3895 report. Mr. President Ian.
Good
morning.
morning. Ian Satterfield for the record, Local 3895 President. Just a couple things this morning. As you can tell, there were quite a few members throughout Local 3895 supporting men's health this month. I'm a little luckier because I had to have surgery, so I'm off for a little bit, so I can actually do a little of that. But there are quite a few guys running around with big mustaches on, so if you do see them, feel free to comment and joke with them a little bit. Probably the best thing that happened this last month was we were approached by Todd Douglas Fire, local. They had been down at the renowned Children's Hospital and were approached by them, and they had found out that they were running short on toys. They put together a campaign in a short time frame, got us, Carson City, Reno Fire, I believe Incline, as well as Sparks were involved. We all threw in, we put in 500, went out, bought a bunch of toys. With the chief's support, we were able to get an engine down there with a crew, filled the engine up with toys, brought it to the hospital. The crews took the toys up to the children's floors, handed out toys to the kids. It was one of those just amazing moments. So it's commendable for, in a short period of time how, all the departments can get together and, come up with something great like that. And I want to say they raised close to $3,000 or $4,000 worth of toys, so that's pretty commendable. Lastly, Fire Ops is here. It is Thursday night into Friday, I know. And I know you guys have talked to me, there were quite a few conflicts. I understand you guys are very busy, but that doesn't mean that there isn't always next year, right? So we will get you one way or the other. If that is all I have for today, unless you guys have any questions for me.
Thank you, President Satterfield. Any questions or remarks? Good job with the kids and the toys. Thank you. Mr. Fire Chief.
Madam Chair, item number 6 is acceptance of a presentation from the United States Forest Service regarding prescribed burns. Mr. Steve Powell and Annabelle Monty are here to give a presentation on pile burning for the winter, and despite the local tragedy we've just had, prescribed burning is going to be a necessary component of our fuels reduction strategies going forward. So I'll simply turn it over to them.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good morning. I'm Steve Howell. I'm with the United States Forest Service. I manage and oversee the prescribed fire and fuels program for the Carson and Bridgeport Ranger districts. I have a little over 22 years experience working in wildland and prescribed fire. I live in, I'm a resident of Washoe County, and so I do understand the challenges and sensitivities regarding prescribed burning in this area. So I'd like to do a quick presentation. I don't have much time about our plans moving forward, what our process is, and our pile burning that we do plan to do moving forward. And when I say pile burning, this is different than the events that took place in Little Valley. Little Valley was an understory burn, and we're going to move forward with pile burn. So prescribed fire in the Forest Service, what does that mean? Prescribed fire, we do it for 2 reasons in the Forest Service. We do it for forest health, and we do it to reduce hazardous fuels to hopefully stop a catastrophic wildfire in the future. There is a graphic on the screen there. It's a Weather Service graphic of the United States with red little dots up there, and that is we put that in there just to show that it's a typical day in the United States in the fall, winter, and spring of prescribed burning. And that is almost predominantly prescribed fires that are planned for that day. So you can see, you know, especially in the west, how many prescribed burns take place in a typical day. You know, when we go to do prescribed burning, the Forest Service, we follow a burn plan. It's our Bible on the ground. Those burn plans are written by specialists and burn bosses, qualified burn bosses on the ground. Those are our dictionary that tell us our parameters of burning. And in there, it gives us our weather parameters, and it also gives us our smoke parameters, and it will dictate to us how many personnel and what type of equipment we need on scene. And with that, the burn boss will use that as well to determine prior to burning. They will go through their checklist to make sure that everything is in place before we burn. Different types of fire, and you know, that are up on the screen. Like I said, the first is understory burning. We do conduct that on the Carson and Bridgeport Ranger districts. We do not have any planned here in Washoe County this year. That mimics a natural slow burning fire, is what we try and mimic. On the ground, we reduce the fuels from under the understory of trees. That's usually conducted over large acreage areas. I am a proponent of spring burns during that time. When we do our understory burns, I like to do spring burns. And a couple of reasons being, in the spring, we have green up, and the trees and the brush and the grasses at that point now have more moisture in them. So with that, it's a much more low intensity burn. And then the second type of burn that we do is pile burning, and that is predominantly 97% of what we do, pile burning for prescribed burning. And in pile burning, that is we're burning piles that are constructed by hand or machine, and those fires are contained to the pile itself. And for the most part, those burns take place in snow and or rain, in those conditions for the most part. We do look at other methods on the ground as well. We just don't go out and burn everything that we see out there. We use things such as logging, we chip, we use masticators, we use livestock where we can to reduce fuels. So why do we choose prescribed fire in certain areas? Location and access is a big reason why. The Forest Service, we don't have a lot of access through areas, through private property to get in to see, where we can get equipment in to do work and remove the fuels. So then at that point, we have to go in and we have to hand cut and pile and burn those to get rid of those hazardous fuels. So that is why we use prescribed fire a lot in the Forest Service, because we have no other way to get those that material out of there. The other reason is cost. Cost is that is probably our most cost-effective way to treat hazardous fuels on the ground, is prescribed burning. Before we do any project, a group of individuals get together from the Forest Service, and we all consult and determine what types of, what best method to use on the ground. And then that's also where we will choose prescribed fire. So Forest Service personnel requirements for burning. We follow a national standard for all of our prescribed fire and wildland fire. And the Forest Service also, on top of that, they have a handbook. So we have an extra requirement from the Forest Service for our qualifications. So we have to follow extra steps on top of the national standard. And so the next slide here, this is where we have piles this year in and around Washoe County. So we have approximately 350 acres out there right now of piles that need to be burned. About 126 acres of those piles exist in Sierra County, and the reason we put them up there is because we know that when we light that, it's right next door, and everybody can see that from Washoe County. That's where all the calls come from. And the bulk of our piles this year, unfortunately, are in Washoe Valley. We have approximately 200 acres of piles in Washoe Valley this year. and a lot in Little Valley itself. You know, after the events that took place, you know, we sat down and I thought, you know, what are we going to do now? You know, that this happened, and you know, it came to my mind. Well, if we don't do anything, and we leave the piles out there, that also leaves that leaves a threat in itself. If we leave the piles, it leaves the chance of bugs and insects, and they get into those piles, they breed, and then they attack the trees and the other vegetation around, and eventually kill them. The other thing is, if we leave those piles out there, and we did get a fire, wildland fire in the summer, it'd be detrimental if a fire came through there. For one, it would be very difficult to control that fire in those areas with the piles, and it would be detrimental to that ecosystem itself in that area. So as we move forward, I think burning, you know, this year, we would like to, as we burn, take those windows opportunities that we see that have snow on the ground, or that it's snowing or raining, and use those opportunities to burn these piles. You know, and those opportunities may be one day, you know, it may be a week long, but you know, I think we're going to have to take a step back as an agency and burn in those types of conditions, and you know, and then slowly work back in the future. One thing, there's a slide up here, and it shows this house. This is a project that we completed, and this house is in Washoe Valley. The Little Valley fire burned up just behind this house. And this is a project that we did a number of years ago. We've been in there twice, but this is just a slide of what we do to reduce the fuels and the pile burning. So that first slide was brush in there. This is where it's cut and piled, and then this is where we pile burned it. And so these are the types of things that we do out there when you see the piles on the ground. And you know, that's all I had to present. I just wanted to, you know, let everyone know that the Forest Service does plan on moving forward to burn piles, and you know, we do understand, you know, everybody's sensitivities following prescribed burning.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here too.
Yeah.
Any questions before we go to public comment? Commissioner Berkeley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually don't have a question, but just a comment on the concerns about the bugs that build up in those piles. We are already facing terrible bug infestation of the trees along the western side of the Sierra, and I know pile burning is one of the things that will really help control that infestation on our side, so I applaud you guys going forward with it and taking care of it.
Commissioner Martin?
Madam Chair. Mr. Howell, when you talk about the piles, I remember living in southeastern Idaho where we dealt with large slash piles from logging. Are we dealing just with underbrush that you guys are piling up, or are we also dealing with slash piles from logging activities?
We are big on logging around here. We
Okay.
do log some. So we do have some logging piles, but those are not in Washoe County.
So we're not actively trying to thin the forest a bit?
We are, and we do it by hand. The reason being is cost, you know, and the value of timber.
Right,
And, you know, it's hard to get companies to come here and log.
I see.
And so most of our piles out there are built, they're either brush piles,
Okay.
or they're small diameter trees that were thinned from the understory.
I see. Okay.
Is what's out there. So a typical pile to us is about an 8 by 8 pile.
Oh, very small.
Yeah, very small pile.
Yeah, okay, all right. Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, Vice Chairman Lucy?
Okay, I have a quick question in regards to when you guys do the pile burns. Obviously, you are hopefully making sure all of the environmental prescriptions are in place to allow you to do the pile burns. What kind of staffing do you usually equip with these specific burns?
You know, it depends on the day, and it depends on our conditions. Our burn plans dictate what that is. You know, we have a low day, a medium day, and a high day. And a high day meaning that, you know, things are going to burn a little bit hotter. Low day, you know, things are going to be really hard to burn. So we typically run 6 people at the minimum. And that usually is in snow or rain. So if we were burning in a drier condition where we didn't have snow or rain, we would probably have 10 to 20 people out there burning.
Okay. And how many piles will you do in a day specifically, or do you go by area in regards to the burn pile plan?
You know, that again depends on how things burn. Some days, you know, we've got a great window of opportunity to burn, and we can get a lot to burn, and those things burn quick and they burn down fast. There's other days where we struggle to even get a pile to burn, and so we may be out there fighting to even burn a couple acres that day. So it all depends on Mother Nature that day.
And then one last question. The Little Valley area, we have 139 acres of piles. Can you explain in more detail what that 139 acres of piles is? Is that still an active timber that's outside of the fire that still needs to be burned, obviously? Or are those piles, or is that 139 included some of the fire area? Can you explain that to me?
The 139 includes a very small portion of that fire area. We have not mapped it yet to even see how much of that is burned, but it's a very small area. And the piles are to the south, working towards Carson City,
Okay.
up in there. And so they're the south of the burn. And they are in Little Valley itself, and then as you come out of Little Valley, coming down there in the brush fields, coming down into the residence on the south end of Little Valley there.
Okay. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Welcome very much. Any other questions? Do we have public comment, Madam Clerk?
We do, we have one. Deborah Shelter.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Debbie Sheltra, former resident of Franktown Road, one of your burn victims. I applaud this plan. I'm here to support it. Norm Azevedo asked me, they're doing a lot of work behind his property on the south end, and he is also supporting it. I was assured, and I would ask you to get this memorandum in writing. Steve has said to us that they will stay and every pile will be mopped up. That means wet, not to be sparked by wind before they leave it. I would like to see that in writing because we were promised that from NDF and we did not get it. They left the premise on every given night. And I think this is being done right, and we would like to support it when it's done right. I've heard everything that should have been that was not done, that is going to be done by U.S. Forest Service. And so I would like my comments to be taken very seriously, and I would like you guys to get that in writing, that they will stay there until their spots are mopped up, so they don't have a chance of catching in the wind and burning the rest of our valley down. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shelter. Sorry. Any other public comment?
That was it, Madam Chair.
All right. I will bring it back to the board. Anything you have to add, Chief, before we accept this report?
I might just add that this burning is critical to keep fires on the ground. When you have low fuels on the forest floor, that minimizes the chance for the fire to get into a ground fire, which is something we cannot contain without our craft. So I think it's very, very important that we proceed.
Okay, thank you for that, Chief. Commissioner Hartums.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question for legal. Mr. Wattsfield, well, what ability do we have to require the Forest Service to give us that guarantee in writing?
Well, from an open meeting law perspective, right now, you probably don't have the authority to do that because it's not been agenda.
Understood.
I also was just going through the presentation. I believe there's a burn plan that's attached.
Right.
Whether the burn plan covers that, I didn't look for specifically, but it may already be in writing.
Okay.
I think Chief Moore can take a look, and he can certainly request that those sorts of things be in writing, but I don't know that he's going to have the legal authority to demand that. We can look into it.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Seeing no further questions, I will take a motion to accept the presentation.
Move to approve, Madam Chair.
Second?
The motion by Lucy, second by Hartung. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much for being here. Mr. Chief.
Madam Chair, item number 7 is acceptance of a presentation from Washoe County Community Development regarding the burned area emergency response team, known as the BEAR team. So they're here to present on what restoration efforts are occurring in Little Valley, Washoe Valley.
Great, thank you.
Commissioners, thanks for the invitation to present today. I'm Cheryl Surface, Washoe County Natural Resource Planner, and I'm the lead for the Burned Area Emergency Response Team, fondly known as BEAR. So once the fire is out, then the BEAR team comes in and we look at situations that may cause concern post-fire, hazardous fuels, water issues, flooding, that sort of thing. So we formed a BEAR team Monday after the fire. So just within 3 days after the fire, we were already organizing a BEAR team and putting it in place. We've got a lot of partners on the team. So we have Washoe County, the U.S. Forest Service has been one of our partners, Nevada Division of Forestry, NRCS, Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District has been one of our major partners, Nevada Department of Transportation, Nevada Department of Wildlife, Nevada Department of Emergency Services, National Weather Service, NOAA, Nevada Land Trust, and Truckee Meadows Water Authority. So what we do is we bring a group of experts together and we look at the team. We set it up under the incident command system. We're currently post-planning stage. So we ended up with 2 survey teams that we put out in the field. We're now in the phase that will be implementation. I think my mic just went out. It's okay, I'll talk loud. Go ahead.
It's back on.
So the objectives of the organization, we basically look at everything post-fire. So safety is our #1 concern. So we're looking for hazards, safety hazards post-fire. And it's primarily for the natural environment. So we're not looking at the footprints of the homes. We're looking at the environment around the homes. So the slopes, the hillsides, the culverts, the ditches. There's a Franktown ditch there. We're looking at those sort of things to see what kind of impacts may occur post-fire. Now, unfortunately, with this fire, we had a 3 to 5 inch rain event post-fire the first weekend, closely followed the second weekend by another 2 to 3 inches of rain. So if you want to keep going. So you can see we ended up highlighting our areas of concern. Our priorities, public safety, water quality, stormwater runoff, and erosion risk. So we looked at the entire landscape of the fire, all 2,300 acres. The Forest Service had their own BEAR team that looked at their 360 acres. They put together their own restoration plan, and they received funding to do one component of their plan, which is to restore the Little Valley Access Road as it crosses Franktown Creek. So they'll be starting to do some work on the Little Valley Access Road. And then we looked at all the state and private parcels. So we surveyed over 30 private properties. Between the 2 BEAR teams, we had a mountain team and a ranch team. And anybody who gave us a right of access entry, go ahead and click forward, we had to get permission to go on each of the private parcels. So we got permission from the private property owners with a right of entry, and then we went in and we did an assessment. So here's some assessment teams out on the ground. A lot of the private property owners met with us on site, and keep going. We looked at other things. So we mapped all the drainages, all the culverts and ditches and ponds and creeks and overflows and all the channels. We mapped those because those were a concern for us. We also looked at the severity of the fire. So here's a severity index. So the areas that are red, those received the most intense fire. So those were particularly concerning to us, so we focused on those areas as well. So here's just a show of our assessment form. It's a 4-page form. So remember, we're doing one of these for each parcel, including mapping, including photographing the site. So this is one of the sites we looked at. You can see steep slopes, loss of vegetation, lots of soil activity and movement, hugely concerning for us. If there's a target, so if there's a house, a road, a structure, a culvert, a ditch, anything below that might be impacted by soil movement, that's what we were looking at. So we put together a plan. We did all this within like 2 weeks. That was really quick. And so here's our planning efforts. The ones in red are priority #1 areas. The yellow, priority #2. and the green are our third priority, which means we're not doing things on every parcel. We're looking at each parcel individually. So here's some photos just to show you what our concerns are. Reeling on the side slopes. This is above JS Bar Ranch Road, so it was impacting that road, which is a Washoe County facility. This is a private property owner who now has beachfront property, whereas before he had a pasture. That's about 6 to 8 inches worth of sand on his pasture. Lots of impact from the runoff, just individuals' fences, houses themselves. This is right next to Franktown Road. This is the Franktown ditch. The Franktown ditch, unfortunately, vegetation on the upper slope of the Franktown ditch was denuded, and it caused a lot of soil movement into the ditch itself. We've cleaned it out about 3 times now. We've had some breaches on the ditch because it was overflowing the banks. We've got sandbags and emergency stabilization in place on the ditch, but there's some long-term planning that needs to happen. The Washoe County crews got out right away. They did emergency stabilization along both JS Bar Ranch Road and Old Ranch Road, which are Washoe County roads. They put up silt fencing, they put up straw wattles, they did some rock sediment basins along that road. Here's some of the work that was completed by the Washoe County crews. This is the kind of work that will be continuing across the entire landscape on the private property as well. And then we put together a couple of different handouts, and I left some on the back table for you just so you can see. So we put together treatment options for the Little Valley Fire as recommended by the Bear team, and we presented these to the private property owners last night. So we recommend a thing called log erosion barriers, where we take the wood that's on site and we cut the wood down, and then we use it for erosion control on the private property. And so we cut the tree down, we build a little trench, we put the wood in the trench so that it won't roll down the hill, and then we stake it in. And then it acts as a measure to slow down the swell and the water movement on the steeper slopes. We also, can you go back to that one, please? Thank you. We also use rock check dams. So you saw some pictures of those that Washoe County put in along the roadways. But the rock check dams, same thing. In the drainages, the ditches, it'll slow the water movement and have the sedimentation kind of fall out behind the rock. We also use sediment logs, also known as core logs or straw wattles. It's a common terminology for them. And we're recommending that in many areas in the Little Valley Fire. And then we're also recommending reseeding and replanting. So there was a lot of concern about the forest health on the Little Valley Fire. We put together a team of foresters, including Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District Chief Hike is here. He's been out in the field with me so many times I can't tell you. But the trees basically looked like they had the water sucked out of them. And there was some concern whether the health of the tree. Annabelle from the Forest Service went out in the field with us. We want to have like a kind of watch and wait on some of the trees out there. We think that the health of the tree will remain viable over the course of the next few years. Of course, these ones that were completely burned, we're looking at evaluating those for use as log erosion barriers, for salvage capabilities, or removing hazard trees. So we're recommending to the private property owners that they allow, we've got a team of foresters that are going to go out in the field and assess each private property owner for hazard trees, for potential log erosion barriers, and for salvageable trees. So this is the team out in the field. We also put together a guide for them. So fire injured trees, what's what? You know, what can you expect from the trees that remain on your property? So I also provided that on the back table for you as well. It's a 2-part form. Flip it over. The back page has more information on it. So basically our post-fire recommendations from the Bear team are reseeding and revegetation. We want to make sure that the irrigation ditches, drainages, culverts, any water structures remain open. We have INDOT, they did a survey of Franktown Road, and INDOT figures it will take them about 2 months in order to clean all the culverts and ditches along Franktown Road. We're working hand in hand with them because we can't just open some of the culverts and the ditches because the downslope area of that may receive further impact. So we're kind of working in concert to make sure that when we're cleaning those ditches and culverts that the outflow has been channeled in an area that's not going to create more problems for one of those downslope property owners. we're recommending, can you go back to that? About 10,000 lineal feet of straw erosion logs or wattles, 12 rock check dams, hazard tree removal, log erosion barriers, and salvage assessments, and then removal of those hazard trees and log erosion barriers. And both NDF and Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District have offered crews to help us in the hazard tree removal and the installation of those log erosion barriers. So kind of a little timeline for you. So we established the Bear Team, like I said, post-fire, boom, we were going. Did a community presentation on October 24th to let the folks know what we were intending to do as far as restoration, getting the right of entries. We're out in the field doing field assessments a couple of days in October. We had a post-team meeting, put together our plans by November 3rd, and last night we met with affected private property owners and went over each individual private property owner's plan with them, and also received some more right of entries. We're continuing to trickle in. Some folks weren't on board right away, and now they're looking for us to do assessments. So that'll continue, I suspect, throughout the course of the winter time. But now we're kind of next steps, continuing our right of entries, securing funding for treatments. It's difficult to find funding to actually do any post-fire rehabilitation. There's not a lot of funding available. No FEMA funding can be used for it. NRCS funding can't be used. They all have limits of opportunity, and we didn't meet those limits. So continuing to do the forest health assessments, getting out on each private property and looking at it individually from a forest health perspective. And then, of course, implementing the plan that we have in place. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Just ready to move forward and start putting the plan in place.
Thank you very much, Ms. Surface. You have an interesting job.
I do.
You do a great job, too. Any questions, Vice Chairman Lucy?
Madam Chair, thank you, Mrs. Surface. I appreciate all the work that you've done over the last month. I know it has been a daunting task. I have some questions in regards. Last thing you brought up in the next steps is secure funding for treatments. And as I'm going through this and I'm looking at the post-fire rehabilitation recommendations, the costs seem pretty significant. So what can we do if we can't secure funding? How do we proceed next? Because it seems like this is going to be pretty costly as a rehabilitation project.
So we're looking at 2 grant funding opportunities right now. Nevada Department of Wildlife has a Dream Tags grant application that we're meeting to put together funding through that program. And then also the Truckee River Fund has a program and an opportunity for us to utilize some funds from the Truckee River. And we'll be putting in a grant application through them as well.
What about the Nevada Division of Forestry?
I'm not exactly sure where the Nevada Division of Forestry is at this point in the restoration process. They've been very helpful in the planning component of it. And originally we had crews on board to start doing some of the work for us. They've now requested that each of the private property owners have a separate right of entry with the Nevada Division of Forestry in order to allow their crews to do work on their property. So last night we were able to let the private property owners know about this continuing opportunity, and that in order to have NDF crews available to do some of this implementation, they would need to give NDF a right of entry separate from the one that they currently have with Washoe County.
And I don't think that this is something that you are responsible of, but I believe that Nevada Division of Forestry has a ample role to play in this, and feel that they should hopefully step up and start assisting with the financing of this restoration projects, because it is going to be significant. And it's going to be on the shoulders of Washoe County and the Forest Service, is what it sounds like, and potentially Department of Wildlife, those who were not necessarily the ones that were this initiated from. One other question I have for you, based on your assessments, what percentage of the trees within the area, within the burn area, remain healthy? Because I see you have the examples of likely trees to survive based upon Nevada Division of Forestry. Have you assessed the amount of trees that are in there in the burn area that have been
We have not. So what we are, the opportunity that we're at right now is each private property owner will get a separate evaluation of the timber on their property. And that evaluation will include hazard trees, which we looked at originally, but hazard trees and removal of hazard trees, opportunity to use log erosion barriers from the trees that are on their property, and also if there's salvageable wood on their property that they could perhaps offer for some benefit monetarily back to them, to a salvage company that's offered that out there. The one thing we don't want to do is have the entire forest be cut. When some of the trees, in our original 4-team assessment, we'd like some of the trees to remain on site because we think that they're actually they're viable and they're healthy. So each individual property owner will receive a forest health assessment.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Any other questions? Commissioner Hartzell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Commissioner Lucy, your questions are spot on. I think that you may encounter some reticence from the residents wanting NDF to have anything to do with this on their land. They're angry, and rightfully so. I don't know whether we can do this, but I think we need to immediately start talks with NDF, and they need to fully handle, in terms of the monetary component, this restoration project. It is their sole responsibility, in my personal opinion. And it's great that we've stepped up and we are putting our manpower and our labor and our knowledge forward and trying to help the residents. But at the end of the day, I think Nevada Division of Forestry is completely responsible for this. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions for Ms. Surface? Thank you, great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chief Moore, you want to say something before I go to public comment?
And real quickly, Madam Chair, for the record, the PowerPoint that Ms. Service just presented was put on your desk this morning and is placed on file for the record.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to announce and speak to Commissioner Lucy's point that out of a contingency line item that TM has, I've authorized Chief Ika to expend up to $10,000 to help citizens with removal of hazard trees, because the last thing I want is for a tree to come down and hurt somebody now at this point. So after that work's done, we'll see what we can do to build that back to NDF, but I think it's important not having that, how that costs are going to be paid to move forward and still resolve some of the risks that we have.
Sure. Great, any other questions? Public comment?
I have no one signed in.
All right, I will entertain a motion to accept it.
So, motion to accept.
Second, motion by Lucy, a second by Bert Bickler. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Item number 8, Mr. Fire Chief.
Item number 8 is Fire Chief's report. We have a lot of new employees I'd like to introduce them and ask them to come on up. I don't think we've hired this many employees since July 2000.
No.
I'd like to introduce Dina Wiggins, who's now our HR administrator. She's going to help us with a lot of the processes that we have. She comes with a master's degree in public policy and management. Very smart, 19 years of experience in public and private sector, and so we're very, very happy to have her. Denise Reynolds is a new fire inspector for us. She comes from California and Tennessee, has about 10 years of experience in plans review and all aspects of fire prevention. So we're really rounding out now our fire prevention division, where Chief Ray has struggled with a one-person shop. We now have 3 there. Gabe Strauss, who's a brand new mechanic. Gabe has 22 years of experience and is a lifelong Nevada resident, as well as 3rd generation Nevada, which I think that's pretty cool. He has a wife, Tricia, and a daughter, Aspen, and we're very, very glad to have him here. And Caleb Duster, who's going to be our mechanic assistant and logistics assistant. He comes to us from Jones West Ford, where he's a line mechanic, and very, very smart kid. We're going to get him trained up in heavy diesel mechanics. So we're very, very proud, and I wanted to welcome all of our new employees here.
Thank you.
Little while.
And don't you over the camera.
Good night.
Can't go anywhere.
I'm used to tripods. I trip over them all the time.
Trip over all the time. So you know how to do that.
That's my job.
Good stuff. Better to joke less, right? Better package, better workout. No obviously following cars. Okay, let's.
He looks like a baby.
Oh, yeah.
He's 17 weeks old.
Thank you. Great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Welcome aboard.
It's like 101.
All right, again, congratulations, and may you have a long and fruitful career here at Washoe County and Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District.
I'd also like to announce that I've met with the National Incident Management Organization, which NDS has brought in to look at the prescribed burn from the time index of 138 when we were dispatched all the way back when they first hatched the idea. So they are here on the ground. I believe they'll be issuing a press release sometime today. I spent probably a good 4 hours with them, as well as some of my staff members, just discussing what happened, the events that happened up until the point of ignition. So they've asked that I not comment on any of their work until their report is done, and they expect to have that report issued sometime in January. Moving on, the board asked for an update on Station 14 development. I didn't mean to copy all that SUP paperwork to you, but nevertheless, it's there. We did have a meeting at the South Valley Cab, and we had good feedback from the board members of the cab. Just a few questions from the citizens about the rural road there and moving big fire trucks down a narrow road, but nevertheless, I think over time, I believe Commissioner Lucy addressed that point, that county will look at trying to widen that out, and certainly as development happens in the parcel that's to the east, certainly that will cause some widening of that road. But that really has been about it in terms of citizen input. We are going to have a citizen meeting. I don't recall the date. I believe it's I think it's very, very soon. I'm sorry, I don't have the date in front of me. But nevertheless, we'll meet with the citizens in and around the area. So the architecture is moving forward. If everything goes smooth with the SUP, we expect to have a building permit in January, February, break ground, and occupy the building sometime this time around 2017. It's about a year from now. And finally, the board asked me about district management organization. I've contracted with ESCI. We're looking at hiring 2 chief officers, one who's in charge of EMS and training, and one who's going to be an operations chief. We intend to do a national recruitment, so we'll look in a broad area. Of course, we'll want to look at internal candidates as well as external candidates. That process will start with advertising right after the new year, and we should have our candidates selected by April. So I'd love to have the board members, to the extent that you would like to be involved in that. I'm going to involve 3895, as well as the chief officers, of course, and make this an inclusive process with picking the new chiefs in both of those arenas. So that is the progress to report on that. And finally, if there are any questions about career and volunteer stats, I'd be glad to answer those. If not, I'll let the reports stand.
All right, any questions for the chief? This is not an action item, so we do not have public comment. I just have a correction. In the front of our packets, in the first sleeve, it references the very first line, TMFPD Station 13 on Silver Lake Boulevard. Instead, a career house as under the District of Jung, and that's under the District of Herman.
We'll fix that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yep.
Mine says Herman.
Mine says
Everybody else says, well, ours stays John and theirs say Herman, so.
All right, item number 9 is discussion of possible direction to staff regarding salary and/or adjustments to employment agreement for TMF PD and fire chief. This goes back to my last evaluation. The board asked that I do research with respect to salary comparisons with other regional chiefs. I looked at the record and I can't really glean any further direction than just doing the analysis. So the analysis is presented to you and I'll be looking for direction on how you'd like me to proceed. One suggestion might be that you direct Washoe County HR Director and me to meet and bring back a specific recommendation or anything that you have in mind for that.
Anybody have any questions? I'm the one that asked for this to come back to the board. This is a way to demonstrate parity, and as I've said before, it's, no matter what you think or say, when you live in a capitalistic society, people do check each other's public salaries, and there is a different swagger that comes with it, man or woman. And I think that this fire chief has proven himself and stood up a fire department rather quickly and under a lot of outside and inside stress. And I think it's time to equalize his pay commensurate with his experience, his budget size, his, what are you? So, I mean, I think we should take some public comment on it as well, but I like your recommendation, because HR has a great read, and do we have the funds, right, frankly? So let's go to public comment if there is any. Do we have any?
I have no one saying.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I
Yes.
can make a point of, the one thing that I want to point out is the Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District covers a significant amount of area, more than any other one of the agencies within the region. And, you know, not only do we oversee 11 pro stations, but a multitude of volunteer fire stations that you also look over. And so it's not just managing pro staff like a majority of these other chiefs are. You're also managing a number of volunteers and working with them, and you're also helping with Washoe County's fire suppression in Gerlach and the Red Rock Station. And so I think that your duties really supersede some of the other chiefs within the area. So I think that your salary should be commensurate of those duties and tasks that you have to undertake on a daily basis. So I would like to see and make a motion, if I may, Madam Chair, that we direct Human Resources to work directly with the chief and bring back some recommendations in regards to an increased salary that's commensurate with the tasks and duties, and also that creates parity amongst the other chiefs within the area.
Second that motion.
I have a motion by Lucy, a second by Burke-Figler. Any further discussion?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Burke-Figler? She had her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was actually totally agree with what both Commissioner Jung and Commissioner Lucy have said. This is an issue of what a great job you've really done for our fire department here in the county, and we're just really pleased with everything you're doing. And the fact that you spend so much time looking at the broad picture. Again, I go back to the ranch, and the last Colin Fire Ranch. I remember what it was called now, but the last Colin Fire, and how I still get comments from people about what a great job you guys did saving homes. And I think that's such an important aspect of wildland fires that a lot of people don't think about that. And so I'm very pleased, and I totally support the concept of getting parity. So thank you for all you do, Chief.
Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think the chief, this is just my own personal opinion, I think the chief should be on par with what the city of Reno is paying their chief, and that's just my own personal opinion. I don't know whether our budget can afford that, but if we can get anywhere near that, I think that it's overdue, and it is well earned.
Any other? All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Fire Chief.
Thank you, Commissioners. Item number 10 is discussion and possible approval to create 3 additional full-time firefighter paramedic positions. We currently have 4 vacancies within the district that we're now recruiting for. But we're faced with some employee retirements and some promotions, and so what happens, even if we filled those 4, very soon we're going to have more vacancies. So what we'd like to do is overhire those positions, which we've had financial analysis to indicate that it really is a wash between having those positions filled with overtime or actually hiring the positions. So the idea is as those retirees announce their retirement and they leave, and we have promotions for those vacancies, we have candidates then to step up and fill, and so we're never behind the curve. So it's very, very expensive to do a recruiting, to train the employees, and very, very time intensive. So we think that our operation will be better served if we have additional employees that will just step in, and especially through next summer, we'll be in good shape. So it should be a fairly cost-neutral proposal for us, but certainly we do need the board's authorization to hire more than it's currently allocated.
Madam Chair.
Yep.
I completely agree with that. I really like the idea of using less overtime so that our firefighters don't get overtaxed and overtired. And so I would move to approve the creation of 3 additional full-time firefighter paramedic positions.
Second.
I have a motion by Burkbickler, a second by Hartung. Do we have any public comment?
No, we do not, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Mr. Fire Chief.
Madam Chair, item number 11 is approve the 2017 health benefits program for district employees, dependents, and retirees at an estimated annual cost of $1,691,633, and authorize the chairman of the Board of Fire Commissioners to execute all insurance contracts and service agreements pertinent to the health benefits program. Even though that we've had some large claims experience, we're looking at a 10.8% increase in the total premium, which given what some agencies have seen really isn't that bad. The other thing we'd like to do is offer the employees an additional option, and that's a high deductible plan, which is normally called a health savings account. I believe that the county has a similar type of a program. It's certainly optional for all of our employees, but it actually, I think, helps over time the young, healthy employees who don't use physicians a lot to be able to keep a lot of money so that when they retire, they can pay expenses as they get older. So that's the only really change from the current plan. But it does mean that it's cost neutral. It's not going to cost the district any more money to do the HSA.
All right, any questions? I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Hartung, a second by Lucy. Any public comment?
No, ma'am.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Item number 12.
Item number 12 is not necessary, Madam Chair. And
Okay.
moving on to item number 13, Commissioners, Fire Chiefs announcements, requests for information, topics for future agendas, and statements relating to items not on the agenda. No discussion among commissioners will take place on this item. I have no announcements, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Vice Chairman Lucy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to point out, after we had the presentation from the U.S. Forest Service in regards to the prescribed burn piles, I did see within the burn, I guess it's the pile burn plan, that there was a portion that was outlined. Commissioner Hartung said we should try to get this outlined, and Mrs. Shelter had pointed out that we'd like to get this, the mop-up in writing from the U.S. Forest Service. And on page 28 of that pile burn plan, it does state the conditions for mop-up, and that the mop-up has to be, and where the burn boss would be in control of that mop-up, and that they would be responsible for that, and that those piles would be completely out, or made sure that they were not able to spread at any time prior to leaving those specific piles. So it is outlined in here. I would hopefully that we do hold them accountable to, because we will be signing this and working with them. I would just make sure that we would continue to follow that, and it is in writing. So I think that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Berkeley, Commissioner Hartman?
Madam Chair, thank you. I just, fast comment, after today's meeting, I'm going to go ride with 17. I've been on a couple of rides with 15. I know Commissioner Jung, 15 is Sun Valley, 17 is Spanish Springs.
I don't know my number. From fire.
The busiest station in the region, Station 15, I'll tell you, it's just truly amazing what they do and what they go through every single day. So I mean, I encourage all of you. I know Commissioner Jung, you've been on ride-alongs, but if you've not been on a ride-along, I encourage you to do it. It is very eye-opening. And I'm looking forward to seeing what 17 does. Each station is different.
You're doing that today?
I am.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, each station is very different, and you know, the different types of calls that each one responds to is it's very interesting dynamic throughout our Corps. So I would encourage everyone to do
Good
that.
for
Thank you,
you.
Madam Chair.
Thanks for doing that. And I think that the people that have the boots on the ground really appreciate that, because I know it gives us a whole different
Oh,
set
boy.
of compassion when it comes
Oh,
to
boy.
labor relations and would you really want to do this job? You know, could you pay me enough? No. So yeah, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. Any other? All right. Madam Clerk, final public comment.
I have one person signed in, Debbie Sheltra.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Debbie Shelter again, formerly I'm from Franktown Road. I don't know if this is the appropriate place to ask. I don't know if it would be here or the Board of County Commissioners, but I do know from speaking with one of the battalion chiefs that Truckee Meadows asked for reverse 911 approximately 3:15 a.m. And I do know that mine and my neighbor's phones rang at 5:15 a.m. And I spoke with the former head of Washington County School District Transportation, and he told me, his name is passing me right now, he told me that he had a laptop at home and he could go on and call off certain areas when there were snow days, etc. And he could do it within 5 minutes of a telephone call, and it went out to the entire district, and the calls went to the homeowners, the children, residents of children. We've got to have a better system, because many people only made it out because one of the volunteers was calling and knocking person doors. Several people were on fire as they left their residences. And 2-hour delay is not acceptable, and that was our emergency management. So if the school district can do it, the county can do it. And whether this is the appropriate board, or whether you'd rather I say this at the county commission, please let me know. I'll say it again in 10 minutes if that's what you need.
Thank you very much, Ms. Shelter. I believe this is a function of the District Board of Health, actually, in our emergency committee. So I'll take that there as your chair.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Can we take, you guys want to take like a 5-minute bio break?